Hey, my spookies. Before we start the show, I just want to ask for a little bit of help. For the last few months, my dog Chicano's been going through chemotherapy, and I could really use any and all help to pay for it. So if you have a couple of bucks to spare and you enjoy what we do here, go to weeklyspooky.com and click on Help My Dog. Anything is hugely appreciated. It means the world to me, and thank you so much to everyone who's already contributed. But now, I think it's that time again. Let's get ready for the spooky. Going to the bathroom is a mundane occurrence, something you do every single day, probably multiple times a day. But what happens when you go to take a little tinkle break and realize that that tinkle is intent on breaking you?
What's that? You want to be scared? Come with me. You will experience tales of horror, ghosts, and death. It is not recommended for the weak at heart. Listen in the dark. It's more fun that way. This is Weekly Spooky.
Hello, my spookies. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for a little spooky in your weekly. I'm your host and narrator, Enrique Couto, and we have quite a show for you this week. You see, for the month of June, we're doing a very scary mini-series. So, to end May, I wanted to bring us something a little bit lighter, but still a tale of the macabre, the supernatural, and the, grisly. But before we get to tonight's story, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. This is the 193rd episode of Weekly Spooky, and we've come a very long way. We used to do one show every Wednesday. Now we do a show on Monday and Wednesday, and it's a lot of fun. You guys just keep lining up for the scares, and we keep delivering them to you. And of course, in October, it explodes with excitement. It's like a seasonal store opening up for everybody who wants to be scared. But you folks listening right now in the dead of summer, you're special. Because you're like me. You want the spooky all year long. And I intend to deliver it. So make sure you're subscribed on your favorite podcasting app. And hey, we just hit 200 5-star ratings on Spotify. Help us make it 201. Or over on Apple Podcasts, we're at 160. It costs you nothing and it helps the show immensely. So maybe go over there and make sure you're subscribed and leave that rating. But now, my spookies, I think it's about time for us to get to the story. In fact, I think I heard a phantom toilet flush. Oh, don't worry. You'll know what it means. It'll all be revealed soon. But first, a word from our sponsors. Breaking the Seal by Douglas Waltz. The sharp pain in my head was what woke me from my unconscious state. My head felt like thin glass ready to break without warning. Drinking always did that to me. The sudden urge to use the bathroom is what convinced me to actually leave the warmth of my bed. I ignored the protests of my aching head and realized I had fallen asleep with my pants on. A fuzzy memory led me to believe that there should have been someone else in bed with me. The state of the blankets on the far side of the bed confirmed this, but there was no one there. I shrugged and staggered down the hallway to the bathroom. I didn't even try to unzip my pants. I unzipped them and dropped them to the cool tile floor. My bladder protested at the delay, and I lifted the lid to let loose the contents of said bladder, filled with the previous night's drinking. The urine erupted from me with a force I had never seen before. I instantly grabbed my penis as it started to travel up, splashing the entire lid and the back of the toilet. I was sure it would have hit the ceiling if I hadn't interfered by aiming it back in the bowl. The water in the bowl churned and frothed from the sheer velocity of the stream of urine coming from me. To be honest, I had never experienced a piss like this before. Usually there is the initial relaxation upon release, but now it was more of a sense of panic. It was then I realized two things. The bowl of the toilet was filling rapidly, and my stream of urine had not decreased in the slightest. Still churning the water like an outboard motor, I flushed the toilet and continued to urinate. The flushing barely stayed ahead of what was coming out of me. It already felt like I had been there longer than was normal. Looking down, I noticed something on my chest. What the hell was on my chest? I turned the top half of me towards the bathroom mirror over the sink and nearly jumped out of my skin. There was a bloody pentagram on my chest. Why was there a bloody pentagram on my chest? I tentatively touched it and was mildly surprised it didn't hurt. I snapped out of the examination of this new discovery to flush the toilet again before it overflowed. My finger had what looked like blood on it, but I figured it wasn't mine. That led to a whole new list of questions as the urine continued to flow with the same velocity as it had when it started. The uppermost in my mind would be, whose blood was on my chest in the form of a pentagram? Then my phone rang. I jumped from the sudden noise and urine splashed the wall behind the toilet. I had apparently left my phone in my pants pocket when I fell asleep. How much did I have to drink last night? I wondered as I tried to figure out a plan to retrieve my phone from my pants. First, I flushed again. When I pushed down the handle for at least what I thought was the fourth or fifth time, it hit me. I had just fallen into a routine where flushing the toilet repeatedly was part of my life now. My skin crawled with panic as I reached out for the leg of my pants and dragged it closer to me. I thought I could just force my Kegel muscles to stop the flow of piss long enough to reach down and grab my pants. That was a horrible idea. The attempt was met by a lancing, white-hot pain in my penis, and it accomplished absolutely nothing. The urine continued to flow, and I screamed from the agony. My head erupted in sweat, and I saw little black dots swimming in my field of vision. I knew I couldn't pass out. I was absolutely positive that even unconscious, I would continue to piss, filling the room in no time. I was in a ground floor apartment, so the piss would have nowhere to go. I took some deep breaths and relaxed and continued to drag the pants closer. The ringing had stopped, but now that I knew my phone was in the room, I had a lifeline to the outside world. But there was no way I was going to be able to pick up the pants and emerge unscathed. I glanced over my shoulder at the bathtub and knew what was going to happen. It was my only option. I continued to hold my penis and squatted, grabbing my pants, and took the 3 steps to the bathtub and hopped in. I pulled the curtain to contain the flow and held my pants away from the stream. I realized that I would need both hands to get the phone out of my jeans. I took another deep breath, released my cock from my hand, and went for it. 5 seconds later, I had my phone in my right hand, my penis back in my left hand, and there was piss in my hair. The call had come from my friend Nate. I checked the message he left, and it answered more than a few questions. Apparently, at my buddy Nate's house, we had been slamming shots and beer like they were water. When I'm drunk, I've been told that I become aggressively horny. I had left with a girl he called Twitch the Witch. He was checking up on me. I called him back and asked him about the evening. I also found out the reason for the odd name for my choice of female companionship for that night. She was always showing up at parties and tweaking out on meth. Usually she drank a lot, caused a scene, and that was the end of it. But my horny vision had selected her for my advances, and we'd left together. Nate also mentioned that she was a practicing witch. When he asked if I was next to a stream or something, I just ignored it and asked if he had her number. Nate has everybody's number. She answered on the first ring. I could hear the sneer in her voice when she asked how my morning piss went, and I realized my drunken personality had taken things way too far. After much pleading and begging, she felt that I had been punished enough. I gave her my address, and she said she had 2 requirements for removing the curse. 1, she had something else to do, and it would be an hour. 2, to complete my utter humiliation, I would have to meet her outside. I agreed to the terms because I didn't see any other way out of an impossible situation. But at the same time, my alcohol-riddled brain saw a way to decrease my utter humiliation. I used my delivery app on my phone to order a pack of super absorbent adult diapers and a pair of oversized sweatpants. I even left a huge tip to make sure they were left by my doorstep. The delivery got there with 10 minutes to spare before Twitch had scheduled to arrive. Plenty of time. I balled up my jeans, held them against my penis, and ran for the front door. I flung it open, grabbed the bag, and made a dash back to the bathroom. The jeans were already soaked, but the stream was blocked sufficiently that there wasn't piss everywhere. I dropped the bag on the sink and stood in the bathtub while I familiarized myself with how the diapers worked. It was a pack of 20, but I was only going to need about 4 to pull this off. I was interrupted by a text from Twitch telling me she was parking her car and on her way to my apartment. I strapped on the first diaper and layered it with 4 more. Then I pulled on the sweatpants. I was glad they were black. Hides the piss better. That made me laugh for some reason. I stuffed 2 more down the front of my pants and headed for the door. Opening the door, I saw Twitch across the street. At least, I assumed it was her. She was the only person dressed in black goth clothes with a head of shocking green hair. An evil smile crossed her face when we made eye contact, and she stepped off the curb to cross the street. The landscaping truck never saw her. I live on a main road with a speed limit of 45 miles per hour, and she bounced off the front grille of that truck and was sucked under the vehicle. The loudest, sickening crunch filled the air, followed immediately by the screeching of the truck's brakes. Twitch lay mangled on the road, her eyes wide open and staring at me. Blood and gray matter trickled down her ruined face. The diapers had lost the battle, and twin jets of piss shot down both my legs, onto the sidewalk and into the street. I knew the urine would reach Twitch, and I started to laugh. The end.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed that one as much as I did. A nice change of pace, a little dirty humor to get you through your week. And now I'm going to tell you that next week we begin Prom Night of the Dead, the latest Strickfield-themed mini-series, coming straight to your ears for the next 4 weeks. So make sure you've boned up on it by listening to Prom Queen Killer, which we published last Friday. I know you're going to enjoy it, and I love doing these mini-series. I love ending every week on a cliffhanger where you have to tune in, almost as if your life depended on it. And the big 200th episode is coming. I've been working on it every day this week. I can't wait to reveal it to you, but I'm going to keep it a bit more of a secret until it's really ready to rock. And speaking of ready to rock, thank you so much to our 93 patrons over on Patreon who have helped support this show and keep it going and going and going. And I want to say an extra special thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay just a little bit more to hear their names on the show. And they are Bobbletopia.com, Megan Hua, Julia Kirsch, Brent McCullough, Gino Lyons, Steve King, Karen Weemet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. Thank you all so much, and if you want to hear your name read off in that list too, just go to weeklyspooky.com, click on Patreon, and select $15 or higher per month. And believe you me, I'll make it worth your while. But now, my friends, it's time for me to get out of here. I have some spooky work to do of my own. But until next time, make sure you stay scared. And try to stay cool, too. It's getting hot out there. For myself, for my executive producer, Rob Fields, my producer, Dan Wilder, and our composer, Ray Mattis, I will talk at you later.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to find your way back next week. But for now, you are safe. Trust me.